Well, I'm at the beach today, but considering that it is nearly December and I am filming in Ontario, Canada, the beach isn't nearly as great a place to be as you might think. But I am here today to give you my intro for taking a look at the Nikon Z-mount version of Viltrox's excellent 14mm f4 from their Air series. I love this little compact lens on Sony because it is so strong optically, but also so compact. And I've never really seen a lens quite like this, that is this compact, but with this wide a focal length. And so it's a really, really useful lens for a lot of reasons, most notably because it's really easy to drop into a pocket or into your bag to bring along to give you a wide angle perspective. The big question always is, how well is it going to transfer over to Z-mount? And so today I'm going to give you a brief review of how it performs on Z-mount. This is the same lens as what I've already thoroughly reviewed on Sony, but I'll look at a few areas considering how it performs in terms of the autofocus, and then of course some of the optical perspective to see if it is holding up, and show you some pictures coming off of Z-mount. So we're going to dive in today and take a look. All right, let's take a quick look at the build and the design here. As with all of the Viltrox lenses, the Z-mount version is very slightly wider and longer than what the E-mount is. And they're definitely wider when it comes to the smaller Air series because the widest point of the lens ends up being near the lens mount to accommodate that wider diameter of the actual Z-mount. So we have a 68mm diameter here, which is 3mm greater than the E-mount, so it's 2.7 inches. The length here is 58.4mm, so that again is plus 2mm compared to the Sony E-mount, and that is to accommodate for the different flange distance for Z-mount. It's the optical path needs to be just 2 millimeters further, and so you'll find with all of these, they are pretty much exactly 2 millimeters longer. There's 58mm front filter thread up front. As far as the feature set, it is very, very simple here. There's just a ring on here, but it can be used as a customizable control ring here on Z-mount, and so that is one advantage. The weight is 185 grams, and so that's 15 grams heavier than what we found on the E-mount version. There is a USB-C port for firmware updates. There is no weather sealing gasket here at the back. However, there is an HD nano coating on the front. Now, of course, it's a big deal here that we can use traditional filters, 58mm filters, but as we're going to see in the image quality section, this is a lens that has a pretty significant amount of vignette already, and you're going to want to be very, very careful with the kind of filters you use as slim as possible, because otherwise you will introduce additional vignette into the equation here. It does come with a little pouch, and it comes with, both the caps and a hood. All of that is good, but nothing special there, obviously. 7 aperture blades inside. You can get a decent sun star out of it, though, as we're going to see. You're going to be careful in trying to achieve that because flare issues do exist on this lens. It can focus down as closely as 13 centimeters and provides a very useful 0.23 times magnification. So that is great. And the price is the greatest part of all. It's $199 US at MSRP. However, you can always get it cheaper than that. You can use a discount code, which is in the description down below. And then, of course, I'm filming and releasing on Black Friday for this, and the price is way down today, getting this into an epic level of cheapness. And so if you look for sales, you can get this for probably $170 range, which is an incredible value for what you are getting optically and in terms of general performance from this lens. So let's talk autofocus. Autofocus comes via an STM or stepping focus motor, and because this is a wide focal length with a fairly narrow maximum aperture, autofocus doesn't have to work too hard in most situations. The reality is that a lot of the times, even shooting at f4, most things are going to be in focus. The only exception to that is if you get really close to something and you're able to defocus it a little bit. That being said, autofocus is quiet, moves back and forth with good speed, and there's no real issues with that. Likewise here for video, as you can see, has no problem picking up my face, and if I, block kind of infinity where I'm doing close focus and I move my hand back and forth, it jumps back and forth fairly quick. I can do the approach the camera kind of thing, but the truth of the matter is that it doesn't really reveal a whole lot because, again, focus is only having to make incremental changes, not enough that you're actually going to notice unless I get really, really close to the camera. And so at the end of the day, autofocus, it's not anything particularly sophisticated, but it gets the job done. It's fast, it's quiet, it's smooth. And here on Nikon, I didn't really see any significant loss compared to what I saw on Sony. It remains excellent and gets the job done. All right, let's check out our image quality here. So first of all, we have some barrel distortion here, and we definitely have some stronger vignette on Z-mount than what we saw on Sony E-mount. Now, as far as the distortion goes, you can see that there's not a massive amount for such a wide-angle lens, so they've actually done a really good job of mitigating the quantity of distortion here. However, you can see it is a little bit of a complex pattern, and so if you could see here, there's some bulge in the center, but if I work to try to pull that in too much, it creates some pincushion type effect in the corners, and so it's a little bit of a mustache pattern, so just a little bit complex. Also, as far as vignette goes, it's definitely heavier here. I'm needing to move into a plus 70 type zone, and I could probably go a little bit more, whereas on Sony I was at about a plus 48. Now, as far as the distortion goes here in real world, you can see that there is the lines here in the center look quite straight. You can see here, however, there is a little bit going on. If we go in between the profile, you can see it's not really messing with the distortion, and that's because correcting one thing adds the other. But really what we're correcting for is that heavier vignette, and that does make a noticeable difference. Now, what's interesting is if I use video here and I go through this same sequence, you can see that really the lines look quite good. So there is some correction in camera going on there, but I would say that for most applications, video is going to be just fine. As far as how much this vignette is going to affect out in the real world, here's an f4 landscape image. You can see there's a little bit of darkening in the corners here, but for this is uncorrected, no big deal. If I switch to a scene where there's snow down here in the corners, you can definitely see that darkening a bit more, but it's not a deal breaker amount either. I've seen far, far worse. Now, as far as the fringing side of things, first of all, for longitudinal style, there's really no issue there. I mean, you're going to not really have much of a narrow depth of field most of the time. And then if we go to the lateral style, you can see a little bit, but it's pretty well controlled. It's not going to be much of an issue in real-world shooting. So as far as resolution, this is 45 megapixel Z8, and I'm showing you at 200% magnification. You can see that this lens is fantastically sharp in the center of the frame. Really sharp, very high contrast. Mid-frame, likewise, looks really, really good. As we pan down here towards the corners, we can see that there is a drop-off right at the very edge. And so you can see it looks really good on this end, but you can see it's just dropping right that last few percentage points of the corners. It's really fading pretty quick. So staying here in the corners, we can see stopping down to f5.6. It's a minor difference, but not much. If we move on to f8, however, we can see that now we're getting closer to the corner. So in this case on Nikon, I would say if you're shooting landscape, shoot at f8. We're getting sharp corners basically right off to the edge of the frame. You can see still got lots of resolution, and even just that much far end, it's looking really, really great. And looking down here into this corner, looking nice and strong there. So here is what an f8 shot looks at 100%, a more typical magnification level. And so you can see lots of different details, textures in this. Looks really, really good in the center of the frame. As I move off here towards the corner, there's that last little bit is softer right in this zone, but most of it you can see is looking crisp. Down into this corner, you can see, it really looks very, very acceptably good. And so this continues to be a surprisingly sharp option. Even like this zone here at this cliff face, just look at how much detail and texture and contrast is there. That's really impressive for such a budget optic that goes so wide. So as always, diffraction is going to be an issue. So here at f11, look at the detail and contrast here, and then if we look at f16, you can see just how much softer both of those look. So the contrast is just not holding up the same way. It's not the end of the world. It's still usable at f16, and certainly at f11 still looking pretty great. Now here's a look at the maximum magnification. This is actually from the E-mount version. You can see it's really sharp in the center of the frame, but it's not a completely flat plane of focus, but obviously a very, very useful amount of magnification, about 0.23 times. So that does give you versatility when you're out and about. You can, you can get close to things and, get different kinds of looks and actually get some defocus background, not strongly. F4 is not particularly fast. 14 millimeters is very wide, but you can definitely get some different looks. Colors are nice. You can see very rich, nice levels of saturation, a nice blend here with the Nikon sensor. Here again, this is more evening light here, and the colors are really warm and rich. I have no problem with that end of things. Now, flare resistance is an issue here, and for whatever reason, it seemed to show up more on my review of the Z-mount version than it did on the E-mount, and frankly, I think that has a lot to do with the time of year. The sun is lower in the sky, and so it's a different direction, and so it has a different intensity. So, here where I've used this effectively through trees to get the sun star, but kind of eliminate some of the basic flare pattern, you can see I'm able to get a better looking result. But that is going to be a factor. If we pan back and forth here wide open, you can see there's definitely flare artifacts, and then if we stop it down, those flare artifacts just become more and more pronounced. And so just something to watch out for. That could be a factor for you. So what's my conclusion? Well, this was already a lens that I really, really liked before. And I will say that I like it a little bit better on Sony than what I do on Nikon. But at the same time, this remains an incredibly useful lens for all of the reasons I mentioned in my intro. This is such an optically strong lens for such a small, compact package. And the fact that it goes so wide really gives you an opportunity to bring a very unique perspective along very easily. And so it's light both on your wallet and also light on your camera bag and on your back as you carry it around. At the same time, I do find that optically it's not quite at the same level as what I saw on Sony, mostly due to having significantly more vignette here on Z-mount. At the same time, however, you can correct for that, but it is going to be a bit of a liability. That being said, I'm not sure that there really are too many options to look for here on Z-mount, and so if you're looking for a light, compact, wide-angle focal length, this is a real winner to bring along. You can get a lot of great looking images with it, and while it is a little bit more flare prone than what I would like in certain situations, if you compose in a smart kind of way, you can use that to your benefit, get some great looking sun stars, some flare effects as a part of your image, and also get some really nicely detailed, nicely colored images out of it. And at the end of the day, the biggest thing here is the fact that this is such a wide focal length and a full frame lens at this price point and in this size. And that, combined with the fact that you can use screw-on filters on the front, makes this a real winner in a lot of ways. Now, if you want more information, you can check out my reviews that are linked in the description down below. There are some buying links there as well. As always, thanks for watching. Have a great day, and let the light in.